Good evening, fellows. Good evening, teacher. I'm gonna do my last presentation about protocols for intercultural negotiations. Let's start. It is really important to understand the importance for negotiation between international parties to establish protocols in order to facilitate the negotiation progress. Some authors present the importance of the analysis of the cultural dimensions of all the parties participating on a business deal. And not only in this and not only this is important. Also, the social gap and the age and the gender difference play an important part on negotiation protocols to achieve a great deal. On this video, we are going to expose my point of view on how could the common protocols for intercultural negotiations were used in a proper manner according to the negotiation process between Colombia and United States. I mean the Free Trade Agreement, or FTA. As a part of globalization, international business negotiations have taken part in world economy. However, these negotiations have to face with intercultural difference between countries. In many cases, intercultural difference dimensions may have a remarkable effect in negotiations. For that reason, I put in on the beginning. It is very important to get close to the culture of the counterpart in order to succeed in international business, understanding culture as a system of group behavior which is determined by values. There have been identified more than 10 patterns to understand the difference of culture, such as power distance, uncertain avoidance, individualism, collectivism, masculinity, femininity, long-term, short-term orientations, Confucius dynamics, low and high context negotiations, integrations, attitude towards work, integration approaches to the people, modal discipline, status and relationship, moderations, faith, assertiveness, and others. This cultural difference that could be arising in international negotiations encourages the necessity to create protocols which help to overcome the difference, taking into account these patterns. In addition, as well as taking into account cultural difference, it is important for negotiators to use different negotiation strategies and communication patterns. The legal framework and cultural values always conditions the cross-cultural context of negotiating. These variables are very important in order to understand objectives, strategies, and tactics of the counterpart. However, the model which helped to overcome the distinction of the legal framework between Colombia and the United States is called Game of Two Levels. The first levels take into account the international negotiations that depends on parts. The objective of this level is minimizing the negative impact from the international process. The second level takes into account the national entities or groups. These national groups persuade their own interests through pressures on government. An example of pressures could be the support of economic sectors. Therefore, negotiations create a win set which have all possible agreements. The win set size will depend on the acceptance among first and second level. It is important to size will depend on the acceptance among first and second level. It is important to highlight that the objective will be optimize the win set in two levels. A win set could be right for the second level, but could be a disadvantage with the first level of international negotiation. On the other side, a small win set could be an advantage for international negotiation, but could be unacceptable for local statement. In this context, there are many strategies to optimize the win set where synergies with other countries, political promises, manipulating information, or making secondary payments. I mean under the table. In this context, Colombia has been a country that has not been unaware of the globalization process that is developing in the world economies, which seeks an increase in international trade of goods and services, capital flows, and the use of new technologies. A policy that have, for this reason, there have been a policy that supporting the international of the country through international agreements, such as treaties signed with different countries, such as the United States of America, which is the negotiation in which we based this analysis. According to the negotiation between Colombia and the US, it is important to describe how international protocols were used in order to begin the negotiation. In this case, the model was supported for a model called, as I said before, game of two levels. This model shows the connection between diplomacy and domestic policy in international negotiations. The Colombian government strove to guarantee the acceptance of the free trade agreement not only for the US government and also for the Colombian institutions. In this case, cultural protocols had to work in two sides, local and international. It is very important to establish the experience of the US government in this kind of international negotiations. In this way, it is important to describe the cultural protocol that they use for negotiating with other countries because it is very flexible and it will depend on friendship with the other government. The politic interest will be very important and the ceremony will depend on how important is the interest. There are some important characteristics in negotiation state from US. For example, gift. They do not like expensive gift, and if the counterpart buys some wine, make sure that is a simple one. Counterpart need to know that they can open the gift in front of you. Another characteristic could be clothing. They usually dress up for business meetings. Other characteristic could be how to sit in a meeting. They are very hierarchical. And also the most important person has to sit in the top of the table, farthest from the entrance. On the other hand, it is important to highlight that they are very egocentric negotiating, and it can be explained because the United States is a very dominant country. They rarely try to adapt to their culture of others. There are some attitudes in negotiation state from US. For example, at the beginning, they have an important consideration with the time, so they do not like to waste time and always go straight to the point. They prefer to treat important topics at the beginning and not at the end. In the middle, they are very competitive, so they always manage the times of negotiation. They manage negotiation strategies to take advantage for the counterpart. They do not like bargains, and they do not give many concessions. And at the end, they prefer to conclude negotiations in a clear way and defined way. They are always planning in the long term. They prefer sign agreements with the help of a lawyer. They frequently bring a draft copy and negotiate clause by clause. Also, they come to negotiate thinking they are the stronger part and have a stronger decision power. They are good planners and always like to take control of negotiation. They measure the success on the speed of closing a business and not for the number of dealings. They are really fast in international negotiations. Counterpart has to be prepared to deal with that. Regarding with the style of negotiation, there are some characteristics. The pace of negotiation is very fast. The sentence, time is money, has an important context. They have an analytical thinking, so they go straight to the important part. As I said before, they go straight to the point. They always follow the political aspect, so it is not important the negotiator. The financial and ethical issues are the most important. They prefer not to talk about personal issues during negotiations. Finally, the communication. They prefer words, numbers, and papers instead of facial expression, voice tone, and posture. It is important to keep distance with the counterpart. They rather not physical contact during negotiations. However, they consider a weak shake and reflects weakness, and not direct eye contact reflects lack of confidence and dishonesty. The topic of communications in Colombia had an emphasis on cultural intelligence, seeking the talent to be able to identify the gestures and noun language of the counterpart. For that reason, the negotiation team was led by people who had studies in the United States, people who has lived the culture, all his focus to fulfill the profile and cultural intelligence of the chameleon, in which these people were confused as native. They allow to have a more friendly relation for being able to identify the language and the gestures that are used in culture. Regarding to the international protocols on negotiation with Colombia, it is very important to keep in mind that Colombia struggles with historical class difference, political conflict, and drug cartels. Despite of some common characteristics in doing business with Colombia, it is a country with a lot of diversity between regions and cities. Following only one way of protocols would be a remarkable mistake. On the other hand, for many cultures are very easy to negotiate with Colombians because they tend to be flexible and adaptable and use common sense. As common things, we can see some attitudes and styles to negotiate. To negotiate with Colombians, it is important to build lasting and trusting personal relationships before starting any negotiation. Business relationships exist between people and not necessarily between companies. For some cultures, it is difficult to deal with those aspects because they rather to go straight to the point in order to achieve the goal. Colombians never go straight to the point in business. First, they build trust with counterparts, and after that they will take as many times as they consider concluding a business. In this way, it is important to be very patient and persistent in order to succeed. Therefore, one of the most important things coping with cultural difference in negotiation is not stereotyping, and this rule applies strongly with Colombians because as I said, there is a country with a lot of diversity. As a description with international protocols, the following table shows important patterns which help to contextualize the international negotiation. I named it before, and we are going to say if the country have the pattern. For example, power distance: United States yes, Colombian yes. Uncertainty avoidance: United States yes, Colombian no. Individualism: United States no, Colombian yes. Collectivism: United States yes, Colombian no. Masculinity, femininity: United States yes, Colombian yes. Focus on the future: United States yes, Colombian no. The institutional collectivism: United States yes, Colombian no. Group collectivism: United States yes, Colombian no. Orientation to humanity: United States of course no, Colombian no. Performance orientation: United States yes, Colombian yes. Assertiveness: United States yes, Colombian yes. Hierarchy: United States yes, Colombian yes. Relation with the government: United States yes, Colombian yes. The rate of risk: United States yes, and Colombian yes. Sincerity of the people: none of them. United States no, Colombian no. Attitude of time: how fast? United States yes, Colombian of course no. Skill and gun training: United States yes, Colombian yes. Fast information: United States yes, Colombian no. Territorially: of course United States yes, and Colombian no. Personal space: United States yes, And Colombian, I say no. The free trade agreement between Colombia and the United States was raised on the initiative of the government of President Álvaro Uribe Vélez as a response to the termination of the ATPDEA, that it means Andean Trade Promotions and Drug Eradication Agreement, and the stagnation of FTAA, which means Free Trade Area of the Americas, negotiations, because since 2001, exports to the Andean community have increased from 2,071 million to 1,098 million in 2003, showing a reduction which also prompted the search for new alternatives, which was transformed into a negotiation with several countries by request of Robert Zoellick, commercial representative of the United States. These countries were Peru and Ecuador at the meeting held in Bogota, Colombia in August of 2003. Although the negotiation began in a plurilateral way, through the negotiations were dividing the interests of the countries involved, for which the FTA became three bilateral treaties. At the beginning of negotiations, Colombia presented to the US government a white wingset. It means that Colombia presents everything that they want, starting from the disadvantaged stage. Colombia comes to negotiate in this position because of the pressure of local sectors that were afraid of the FTA that were signed in the Andean region. On the other hand, United States come to its wingset and propose a base text to the negotiation when it showed the territorial position supported with the patterns. Colombia proposed that the first round they can see some critical points instead of direct negotiations and sticking in the proposal with Ecuador and Peru. In this part, we can see how Colombians never go straight to the point, and also the relation with the other Latin American countries. Analyzing the Colombia proposal, it was very idealistic, in my opinion, and it was not going to be accepted by the United States. So Colombian government during this round, as a part of the strategy, wanted to take advantage from the good political relationship and expected a good treatment of the United States only with its agreement but not with the others. In this part we can see how the institutional collectivism does not work. These mistakes show errors in the strategy used to negotiate. Proof of this is that the strategy that Colombia used was to make the negotiation team of the United States see Colombia as a political ally, with the aim of receiving a better treatment, which was not successful. Made it clear that although Colombia was a great political ally, the negotiation was focused on the commercial aspects of the fight against terrorism and drugs. Therefore, the United States said that they would not have a preference treatment to Colombian FTA, and we can see how the pattern collectivists work for the United States. Also, since the beginning of the negotiation, United States was very assertive, and they did not move from its base text. As good negotiators, they just wait and listen the counterpart, but they knew that they were not going to move. After that, Colombia and the other countries lost credibility because the original wingset were changed. It caused that the Colombian negotiation power lost strength. The matter of the fact was the United States also realized that the Colombian request does not affect the other two countries. As a result of those events, Colombian government had to accept the United States conditions and the sign of the free trade agreement with many contradictions and opposition of local sectors. However, the Colombian president achieved a remarkable support for the most important economic sectors because the president knew at the end how to manage promises like reserves and political favors. After the application of the two levels game, the model did not succeed in integrating all the variables from the United States, Peru, and Ecuador. Regarding the issue of the future approach, which seeks to delay the satisfaction of current needs to the actors of the process. The negotiation seeks to offer benefits or make them see that it will be more costly not to approve the agreement to these actors. The other strategy is reverbation, which are the action of a country alter the expectations that social groups of the other country have over the treaty, through persuasion which generates a change in perception of the agreement. To conclude, in my opinion, negotiation process for the Colombian government was a learning process. So the negotiation strategy was poorly structured. One of the reasons was that the President Uribe did not take into account the influence that could have domestic players and the internal politics of the other countries that were part of the agreement. That is to say, the context of the negotiation was unknown, aspect that must have find out if this is so will be difficult to identify the negotiation power that you have in the negotiation, and in this way to able to identify that will be the best tactic to handle the process. Okay, this is the end. Thank you so much and have a good night. Thank you again.